Namaskar. Hello and welcome to P Guru's channel. I'm your host Sri Iyer. Today we have a special session on this special day, the Republic Day of India, and I am going to be having a guest host who is going to be hosting this program, and he will tell you all about it. What is it trying to do, and what are the different participants who will be giving their points of view. So, without further delay, let me introduce our guest host for the evening, Dr. Ratan Sharda. Sharda ji, namaskar and welcome to P
Namaskar,
Guru's channel.
namaskar. Good day to meet
Uh,
you.
Pleasure is all mine, sir. Ratan Sharda ji, now I hand over the baton to you. It's your show, sir, and I'm just going to minimize myself and I'll be down watching everything. If I have a question, I'll of course ask your permission and ask that question. But the show is yours. Over to you, sir.
Thanks, Shri, for giving a platform. It's wonderful to have a platform which has wide circulation and wide audience as well as various media. This program is going to be broadcast on many platforms. Welcome all the brothers and sisters, friends, on this wonderful Republic Day, which is a landmark Republic Day when we have seen the missing pages of history being inserted into our memory with Netaji Subhash Chandra Bose image sculpture coming in Rajpath under a historic canopy. Today we have an interesting discussion which actually arose because of the book which R Venkatesh has written, Retaining the Balance the Eternal Way. This book has two aspects. One is his insistence that we need to look at our economic policies afresh. Then he links it to constitution, that why the constitution also needs a relook so that his economic policies can flourish. It is one of the most original and one of the most provocative and thought-provoking book. As Ashwini Sanghi said, that read it at your own peril, whether you like it or not. So that's the kind of book that is. Now, with this book, this idea of discussing whether our constitution has Bhartiya perspective, this is the topic of the discussion. With me today is a very eminent panel, a panel each of whom can carry the day for himself or herself. The first senior most participant is to come a little late, so I'll introduce her later. I begin with Dr. R Venkatesh himself. Dr. R Venkatesh is a CA. He's a PhD. He's a Supreme Court lawyer and tax practitioner. And he's a writer of many books, the most recent being the thought-provoking, Retaining the Balance the Eternal Way. Welcome, MRV.
Namaskar, sir.
Then we
Namaskar.
have
Happy
Dr.
to be with
Anand
you.
Ranganathan. We know him as a very, very erudite, data flowing from him like Ganga and continuously, and people don't know how to stop it, how to damn him. So he's damned by many people rather than be damned. So he's a BSc from St. Stephen's. Wrong place to start with in terms that he's supposed to be right wing now. He's a BA in natural science. He's a PhD, and he's also MA honorary in history from Pembroke College, Cambridge University. Again, another bastion of British imperialism. He has won a, he has won a number of awards and honors as a scientist and a researcher. He has written 3 books of fiction, and he specializes in research of infections and especially on TB. So, welcome, Dr. Anand Ranganthan.
Thank you, Ratan. A
Then
real
we
pleasure.
have the redoubtable Rahul Roushan, most known for his satire and his tongue-in-cheek humor. I don't know whether he is the eminent intellectual or not, so I will not try to guess. He's a maths graduate from Patna University. He's an MBA from IIM Ahmedabad. He is a postgraduate diploma holder in journalism on IMC. He started his TV as a TV journalist before doing his MBA, and he is a serial entrepreneur. He launched a cricket-based gaming website. He ran a humor satire website. It was so good that it was taken over. Then he has a news and opinion site, which he is running very successfully, one of the most successful sites today, whom even the multinational corporations fear now. With this introduction of the panel, and fourth one, Professor Kumuslata Kedia will be joining soon. She is busy with another program today. So we are talking about whether the constitution has the Bharatiya element or whether we can have insertion of Bharti element in our constitution. I will begin with two quotes from Dr. Ambedkar. First one, he says after the constitution was passed, he said, on the 26th January 1950, we are going to enter into a life of contradictions. In politics, we will have equality. In social and economic life, we will have inequality. In politics, we will be recognizing the principle of one man and one vote, and one vote, one value. In our social and economic life, we shall, by reason of our social and economic structure, continue to deny the principle of one man, one value. How long shall we continue to live in this life of contradictions? How long shall we continue to deny equality in our social and economic life? Then he ends up saying, if we continue to deny it for long, we will do so only by putting our political democracy in peril. We must remove this contradiction at the earliest possible moment, or else those who suffer from inequality will blow up the structure of the political democracy which this assembly has so laboriously built up. So there is a sense of caution from him when he talked about it. And then in September 1953, he says, my submission is this, that no harm can be done to democratic constitution if our constitution is amended. So this is the starting point, that constitution has been assumed to have reasons to be amended or looked upon again. It is not that we can't really change anything, because if that was so, we would not have 100 amendments in the constitution, nor would have seen the even preamble itself being distorted. With this opening remark, I offer the stage to R Venkatesh to introduce his idea, which he has put in his book. And what does he mean when he says that we need dharmic elements in our constitution, which seem to be missing? R Venkatesh.
Ratanji, what I said was that you have made a very important and a very provocative quote from Ambedkar. Let me continue it and take it further by quoting Dr. B.R. Ambedkar. On 15th November 1948, during the Constituent Assembly debate, he says, what should be the policy of the state? How the society should be organized in its social and economic side are matters which must be decided by the people themselves according to time and circumstances. It cannot be laid down in the constitution itself, because that is destroying democracy altogether. If you state in the constitution that the social organization of the state shall take a particular form, you are, in my judgment, taking away the liberty of the people to decide what should be the social organization in which they wish to live. It is perfectly possible today for the majority of people to hold that the socialist organization of society is better than the capitalist organization of society. But it would be perfectly possible for thinking people to devise some other form of social organization which might be better than the socialist organization of today or tomorrow. I do not see, therefore, why the constitution should tie down the people to live in a particular form and not leave it to the people themselves to decide it for themselves. This is Ambedkar in 1948, November 15th. Now, why did I make this reference here? Is that the framers of the constitution were very clear that that this constitution that they are adopting is not something that is cast in stone. They have to revisit it, and they did not arrogate to believe that they had all the wisdom for future generations. They were really humble people, that they thought that here is what we could do the best for the day. And when they tried to do the best for the day, it is very important to also consider an important fact that the Constitution of India, by and large, drew inspiration, like a Bollywood movie does of a Hollywood movie, from the 1935 Government of India Act. And it was lifted in substantial parts, and it was rechristened as the Constitution of India. So on two important aspects: one, that the framers of the constitution themselves considered, yes, we have to revisit several issues and we will leave it to the judgment of the future generation. And two, that this constitution was by and large inspired by the Government of India Act. Now almost 75 years has passed. We definitely have this time, resources, intellectual prowess, and we have the capacity. We need to revisit the constitution and see whether we redraw the constitution based on the good experience of the last 70 years, and also to see whether there is something more to be drawn about, which would be the inspiration or experience of the last 3,000, 5,000 years, the Hindu civilization, the great dharmic civilization that we had, and choose the best out of it and redraft the constitution, imbibing the best of all these things that we can present to ourselves. This would be my initial submission.
Any of the panelists wants to make an initial remark, or should I open up with some query? I can start with a query. Since R Venkatesh talks about the missing Bhartiya values, so my question to him is, what do you think is the missing core of the Bhartiya values in the Constitution? I can start with Rahul Roushan.
This would be best, kind of addressed by the author himself, and to be pretty honest, I might be the least competent in this, August panel to, comment on these things. In fact, I joined to learn. Obviously, I'm not
That's I
so
ambushed
clueless.
you.
Yeah. So I mean, and this is a topic that has been gaining ground for definitely for at least 3 years. Like we have found an articulation where authors like MR and there have been others. Obviously, for example, Sai Deepak. We have been coming up with this articulation that we need to question some of the assumed wisdom or assumed traditions, which kind of cast in stone this constitution, that this cannot be changed, or this is something that is so pure and so perfect that any tinkling is immediately shouted as trying to change the nature of India or idea of India, as they say. And Professor Ambedkar, he is often used as the tool to criticize any of such thought process, and any idea, any thought that something needs to be changed or something needs to be even relooked into the entire constitution is presented as an attack on Dr. Ambedkar, and by extension an attack on Dalits. So this, I would rather begin by saying that it's very important that we have these debates and people know about it. What is missing, the core Bhartiya values and all that? Obviously, I would actually be more interested in listening from MR about these things. As I told you, I'm not really an expert on this subject, but there has been new articulation, and I can definitely sense, as a layman, as somebody who is interested in this entire debate, that that the assumption that we gave this constitution to ourselves in 1949, and adopted it in 50, and that it was somehow perfect reflection of what India was or what Indian culture was. That definitely is not that is not coming across as the final truth. If you look at the debates in Constituent Assembly and the entire way in which this constitution has been arrived, there are elements which kind of hint that perhaps the idea was more, the entire process was more inspired or more driven by by various constitutions of the world, by various other ideas that might not be, that perfectly cannot be termed as Bhartiya values or Indian values. I would rather, I'm not sure how much of hate that I might get, but the Constitution of India and the debates around that, it kind of appears to be more in deference to the ideas of French Revolution rather than Indian ethos. At least that's what it appears to me, that it were those ideas that were more sacrosanct to our drafting committee and our people. Not everyone. I'm not painting everyone with that brush, but it appears as if the ideas that came from the French Revolution, and then the best of the ideas from, say, supposedly best of the ideas from the constitution of US and constitution of other countries they were adopted. I'm not saying that's not a Bhartiya value. Obviously, often it has been repeated that let the best things from the entire world come inside. This is what the Vedas say. So that can be argued that okay, that's also a very Bhartiya core. But in essence, I don't think what is Indian or what is Indic was really on the top of the mind of people when they were framing the constitution. It was more of the modern ideas at that point of time. As I said, even though French Revolution was an event that was more than a couple of centuries old by the time we adopted our constitution, but that still was perhaps the most sacrosanct thing that our founding fathers were looking at. And it's so good that first you quoted Dr. Ambedkar, and then Emma also quoted Dr. Ambedkar, and even I vaguely kind of remembered that Dr. Ambedkar, at least in his view, was very clear that this is not something that is cast in stone and is forever. It's not really a holy book in that sense that nothing can be changed, because he believed that if we come up with that kind of a approach towards constitution, then we are being completely unfair to the future generation. I mean, how they want to govern themselves, how they want to have a different idea of India, maybe. How can any generation deny that right? And that should be actually the basic right to the future generation. So as I said, in specifics, I would leave to experts, and I'm here to learn as well. But this is a very important debate. This is a very important discussion that needs to happen today. This entire alarmism about whether constitution, some part of it, or maybe entire way of looking at it needs to be changed. And it's ridiculous that the preamble itself has been changed, and that also while the country was under emergency. And despite that, it's if someone talks or discusses about a need to have a relook at the constitution, or to discuss if Indian ethos have been properly captured or they have been the driving spirit of the constitution, that creates more alarmism than, say, if somebody says that, okay, if you are so in love with constitution, or if you are in so much in love with what our founding fathers did, then at least do away with those two words that were inserted in while the country was going under emergency. So there is a big hypocrisy from the side of people who get alarmed or who try to scuttle such debates. And as I said, I definitely have more views, but I am more in this discussion willing to learn, and I would leave the specifics to the experts.
So that's how smart I was. I took up the moderator job because I didn't know much about it. So I thought I'll ask others to give me answers. And we have with us now Professor Kumuslata Kedia. Professor Kumuslata Kedia, आपका स्वागत है. She is a renowned social scientist and a development economist. She was a member of Executive Council of Banaras University. She was a former National Fellow of Indian Social Science Research Institute and a former director Dharampal Research Foundation and Dharampal Shodh Peeth, as they call it in Bhopal, and also Gandhi Sansthan Varanasi. बहुत आर्टिकुलेट है, इनके साथ एक यूट्यूब में आ चुका हूँ और बहुत भाषा प्रवाह है, बहुत ज्ञान है. तो अभी मैं अगला इसमें बुलाऊंगा. Before I call, that Rahul just talked about 3-year-old debate, but I'd like to quote from an older debate. Way back in 1988, there was a discussion on Indian political system under the auspices of the India Research Institute in Nagpur. What they noted, I'll just talk about one particular point. What it says, that actually India's political system and its constitution should be in keeping with its deep-rooted traditions. Its idea should be dharma rajya. This dharma is not to be confused with religion. And the supremacy of the code of human conduct that sustains society and supremacy of moral authority over state power. It takes an integrated view of human needs, not merely economic or political, It recognizes the interdependence of man and the environment. It seeks to serve the genuine needs of the individual, the community, the nation, and the humanity as a whole. Therefore, all religions are likely to feel affinity for it as close to their social ethical tenets. The preamble to the constitution should clearly mention that the Dharma Rajya encompasses the ethical judicial principles which are common to all religions. So if you see, then in one of the point it says, Ammar, for your kind attention, the institution of family, which under the impact of West-oriented modernism is tending to break up, must be nurtured. The emphasis has to be on individual in society and not individual versus society. Now, coming to the way constitution was, constructed, I have one more point before I hand over to the next panelist. In 1933, Pandit Nehru said, he said indigenous government to take place in place of foreign government, and if it kept all the vested interests intact, this won't even be a shadow of the freedom. But in April 1948, when Constituent Assembly was on, he said one has to be careful to the steps one takes so as not to injure the existing system too much. I am not brave and gallant enough to go about destroying any more. Then Aladi Krishnaswamy Iyer, who was one of the drafting members of the committee, he said, we are not starting a constitution of anew after revolution. The existing administrative structure which has worked so well for so long cannot be altogether ignored in the new framework. Then we had Professor Srinivasan, who made a very interesting comment, which I would like to quote verbatim. He says, the other day, Srimati Vijayalakshmi, while addressing the United Nations General Assembly in Paris, observed with pride that we in India have borrowed from France the slogan of liberty, equality, fraternity. We have taken this from England and that from America. But she did not say what we have borrowed from our own political, historical past, from our long and checkered history of which we are so proud. Having said this, I would also like to remind that Dr. Ambedkar clearly said that this idea of liberty, equality, and brotherhood comes from Buddha Dharma, not from French Revolution. That was his statement. So, with this, I would like to invite Dr. Anand Ranganthan to make his comment.
No, thanks very much, Ratan, and all my fellow panelists. And once again, congratulations to MRV for a wonderful book. I've read the book at the manuscript stage, and I absolutely loved it, and MRV knows that. So it would be, I don't want it to be a little bit of a shock to MR when I say that his book is deeply flawed in two respects. One, MR, you expect morality and ethics out of politicians. So that's the first blunder. Number two is you expect sincerity out of what is essentially a tribal culture, which is the set of a group of parliamentarians. So that is the second flaw. Other than that, as I said, and I've given a quote for the book as well, I absolutely love the book. And I think everyone who is completely powerless, like the common man like us, would love the book. People who have the power would probably hate it because the book calls for them to take action. And as P.V. Narasimha Rao said, to not take a decision is also to take a decision. Now, in today's environment, as MR says, should we redraft, relook at the constitution? I'm afraid, MR, that's very difficult thing to do because we are a set of people increasingly who don't even agree on Twitter. How the hell are we going to agree on something that is supposed to define or that has defined us for the last 75 years and going forward that is set to define us? I mean, and you look at the opposition, you look at the kind of things, the outrage that they do on almost on a daily basis. I mean, they are even outraging on that Modi is constructing toilets. Why? Because, that is taking away the bonding time of females when they go at 6 o'clock in the morning to the fields. So Modi is wrong. Fit India is wrong. This is wrong, that is wrong, clothes are wrong, cars are wrong. Do you think they would agree to something as philosophical and basic as a constitution, morality or constitution? So I think that we can debate on that. I'm sorry, I always look at a glass which is half full, 3/4 full. But here, MR, I hope you get the picture. It's just, the way the politicians have taken our country forward, quote unquote forward, is just so demoralizing. that I really am left with every waking day less and less hope. Now, let me give you a couple of examples. First of all, I want to throw it to my fellow panelists. Do we really need a constitution? I mean, for example, the UK doesn't have a constitution. Does it suffer so much? Is it so much worse off than India? Do we really need these set of super rules that are the fountainhead of laws that people mostly don't understand? I put it to you that our constitution is like a meme that says सुनने में बहुत अच्छा लगा लेकिन समझ में कुछ नहीं आया. To be very honest with you, 99% of Indians have that feeling towards constitution. No one has read it, and no one wants to be governed by it, because they believe that we are a democracy, and that's about it. And I dare say that the constitution doesn't believe in our people, and our people don't believe in the constitution. For example, three things I will take from the preamble itself. Rahul mentioned two of them. India would be a socialist republic. Kyun bhai? Kisne keh diya? Dr. Ambedkar, Ratan said, and in fact, MR quoted that. Dr. Ambedkar said we should not insert the word socialist because, I don't want, maybe today we are socialists, 10 years, 20 years down the line, we will be capitalists. I don't want our, people to be governed by a set of rules that is so firmly laid down that nothing can be changed. So we have actually suffered. We are countless millions, I can say confidently say, have actually died because we believe that we should walk on the path of socialism. Socialism has actually murdered Indians. Let me put it very bluntly. And we would be foolish to assume that this is not true. So a golden word inscribed in the preamble has murdered millions of Indians. Number two, we would be a secular one. As Rahul said, emergency mein ye ghused diya secular. Are bhai, secular hai hum kya? Absolutely not. We don't even understand what the meaning of secular is. We've been trying to redefine it or I don't know, नया श्रृंगार कर दिया जैसे उस पे. हमारा secular का मतलब अलग है, तुम्हारे secular का मतलब अलग है. ऐसे नहीं होता भाई. एक word का मतलब होता है. अगर आपको वो word accept करना है, आप वो accept करें, otherwise कायम secular नहीं है. You can't say secular has two meanings, one for the West, one for us. No. Secular is an absolutely written in stone separation between the church and state. If we don't accept that term, let us not call ourselves secular. Let us call ourselves happily plural. And we are plural. There are half a dozen, amendments. There are half a dozen articles in the constitutions that make us plural, not secular. So we don't believe in these two words, number one. Number two, and this is what really pains me, ये एक और चीज इंसर्ट कर दी कांग्रेस ने, we will have a scientific temperament. Really? Indira Gandhi believed in scientific temperament. Nehru believed in scientific temperament. उनको सुनाऊं जो वो राजीव गांधी का हॉरोस्कोप लगाना चाहते थे. और आप कौन से scientific temperament की बात कर रहे हो? जब आपके 99% of the people or whatever, majority of the people around the world, they believe the earth was created in 7 days. That God created animals, that God created everything, Adam and Eve, ribs से आई है Eve. जब ये सब आप बिलीव करते हो तो आप कैसे कह रहे हो कि आप में साइंटिफिक टेम्परामेंट है? You can't have two rules. I'm sorry. You either have scientific temperament or you don't. And I'm not saying that you must have it, otherwise you are a lesser human. Absolutely not. Absolutely not. You can be perfectly religious. It's absolutely fine with me. I'm not here to denigrate anyone who is not an atheist. But you can't be both. You can't believe that the earth was actually created in a week by God and say and claim that I have scientific temperament. It doesn't work like that. You can't say that the prophet, ascended to heaven on a donkey-like creature, and at the same time say I have scientific temperament. You can't say that Jesus walked on water, that Jesus turned blood into wine. You can't say those things and at the same time say that, look, I am a believer in constitution and I firmly believe that I have scientific temperament. I'm sorry, you don't do that. So here I've given you very briefly 3 examples where the constitution doesn't trust its own people. And the people, it's not a question of trusting the constitution. They've simply ignored it. Arre, hatao yaar. Scientific temperament, what rubbish. I believe in what I believe. Arre, hatao yaar, secular, socialist. I am a capitalist. I am not a secular. And I don't have this so-called scientific temperament. I believe in God, I believe. So the Indian people are not going to change. Number 2, very briefly, Ratan ji, sorry, मैं थोड़ा सा 30 seconds ज़्यादा ले लेता हूँ, लेकिन if we have time, otherwise I'll stop. Do we have 30 more seconds if I can because this
Yeah,
is what
30
I
seconds
wanted
are
to
always
talk about.
30 seconds are the real sting, so let us have it.
हाँ नहीं वो आ रहा है, वो नेहरू पे मैं आ रहा था, वो मैंने बचा के रखा था. See, MR, and I explained to you that anything that BJP does or intellectuals in today's environment do, and Rahul alluded to this, it is loaded because people are going to have an accusatory finger कि ये देखो संघी आ गया, सब बदलने आ गया, destroy कर रहा है हमारे देश को, ये कर रहा है. वो अलग बात है that the co-founder of communists, EMS Namboodiripad, said on the floor of the parliament, I quote him, we are going to wreck Ambedkar's constitution from within, quote unquote. This is Namboodiripad saying. लेकिन अगर आप लोग कह दें कि वी वांट अ चेंज इन द कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन, हाय 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 ये क्या हो गया, हिंदुत्व आ गया, भागो भागो, इंडिया इज नो लॉन्गर अ डेमोक्रेसी, इट इज अ इलेक्टोरल ऑटोक्रेसी, और सो but the fact of the matter is, in the last 7 years, Modi has quote unquote changed or amended the constitution only 3 times, and that too it was with the support of the rest of the parliament. It was with the support of the opposition parties as well. I refer to the SC/ST Act and a couple of other things. If you look at Congress, if you look at Nehru, how many times have they amended the constitution? 118 times, if I'm not mistaken. MR would know the exact figure. बेशर्मी से फर्स्ट अमेंडमेंट लाए, आप उसका पढ़ो 16 days, त्रिपुर दमन ने जो लिखी है किताब, you would weep at the kind of thought Nehru had and his inclination to change the constitution because of that thought. He said, we don't deserve liberal democracy, we don't deserve all those. I mean, I'm paraphrasing, so I will not get the exact, but I've tweeted about this. He was a dictator, let's be honest about it, and we are suffering because of the First Amendment. तो ये कौन सा कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन है एज अ फ्री स्पीच एब्सोल्यूटिस्ट? आई एम outraged by this constitution, outraged. I believe I may be arrested tomorrow, but it's a scam. It is a great constitution for a banana republic, जो कि आप कह रहे हो कि you are free subject to some conditions. अरे आप फ्री कैसे हो गए यार? अगर you are subjecting your freedom to 7 or 8 conditions, उसमें Rahul delightfully pointed to one condition, that is, you can say whatever you want as long as it does not disturb the friendly relations between countries that India is friendly with. So Rahul wanted Rana Ayub to be arrested because she had disturbed the friendly relations that India has with Saudi Arabia. Now, quite right. I mean, the absurdity is that if somebody would look at Rahul's tweet, technically Rana Ayub should be behind bars. अब इसमें आप कहोगे कि संघियों की गलती है. अरे नहीं भाई, संघी नहीं, तो नेहरू की गलती है. नेहरू ने कहा था, नेहरू अगर होता ही वुड हैव अरेस्टेड राणा अयूब. तौबा तौबा, तुम सऊदी अरेबिया के अगेंस्ट ये क्या क्या बोल रही हो मोहतरमा, वो तो हमारे बहुत फ्रेंडली देश हैं, आप ये नहीं बोल सकती. You don't have the freedom of speech. So this is absurd, this is bizarre. Why should I be controlled by a set of rules that has been amended by dictators like Nehru? I think I'll stop there. I'll keep the rest of the strychnine for later parts.
So Anand, as provocative as always. Today he looks more like an anarchist than a Democrat. But let it be. Let's have an open discussion.
JNU से हूँ ना, JNU से हूँ.
असर पड़ गया. So अभी मैं निमंत्रित करता हूँ डॉक्टर कुसुमलता केडिया जी को, और इससे पहले कि वो आए, मैं एक और बात कहना चाहूंगा. जो कहते हैं वी द पीपल, वो लोग कौन थे? ऐसा लोग प्रश्न उठाते हैं कि वी द पीपल कौन थे जिन्होंने कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन को हामी भरी, और ये रिप्रेजेंटेटिव थे क्या? तो उसके अंदर डॉक्टर जयप्रकाश नारायण को कोट करूंगा मैं. वो कहते हैं, एक डेडिकेटेड सोशलिस्ट थे, वो कमिटेड डेमोक्रेट थे, उसके बारे में कोई शक कर नहीं सकता उनके बारे में. तो उन्होंने क्या कहा था, मैं कोट करूंगा. वो कहते हैं कि द कॉन्स्टिट्यूएंट असेंबली did not represent it was not made by the elected people. It represented only 12% of the people. We the people, only 12% people. If you look at the people, out of 89 members from states, 28 were nominees of the rulers, that is the princes, and 41 are elected, that too indirectly. So how is it we the people? With initial comments that Didi has listened to about what are the missing parts of Bharati values that R Venkatesh talks about, or the representative nature of Constituent Assembly, and also whether we can at least have a look about how we can improve the constitution after 70 years of wonderful experience. It is not that nothing has happened. It is not that all the rulers have ditched the people and only made money and only have brought in corruption. With this remark, I would like Didi to make her initial comments.
कितने मिनट लेना है अभी? मैं थोड़ी देर से आई थी.
हर कमेंट के लिए 4 से 5 मिनट, क्योंकि मेरे पास 15 सवाल अभी हम 2 ही पूरे किए हैं हमने, तो इसके बाद में टाइम से 2-3 मिनट हो गए. इंट्रोडक्टरी आप ले सकते हैं 4 मिनट.
जी, तो भारतीय वैल्यूज को खोजना ही नहीं चाहिए कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन में. बहुत तेजी से बात कर रही हूँ. 1914 से 1919 में पहली लड़ाई है. 1939 से 1945 में दूसरा सेकेंड वर्ल्ड वॉर है. और जो 20 साल 1919 से 1939 का इंटर वॉर पीरियड है, ये यूरोपियन देशों की हड्डी में बुखार ला रहा है. इतना टेंस है. फर्स्ट वर्ल्ड वॉर में यूएसए इसी शर्त पर एंटर किया कि साहब ये कॉलोनी और तुम्हारा एम्पायर वगैरह चलेगा नहीं, इसको जाना है. और पहली लड़ाई के बाद इंग्लैंड, फ्रांस और उनके एलाइज की हालत अपने पैर पर खड़े रहने की नहीं थी. सेकेंड वर्ल्ड वॉर में अमेरिका एंटर करने को तैयार नहीं था, और जब एंटर किया तो बहुत साफ रूजवेल्ट का था, नो मोर कॉलोनीज, कोई एम्पायर नहीं, एंड वी आर नॉट गोइंग टू किल आवर यूथ फॉर योर एम्पायर. तो 45 के बाद वो लेबर पार्टी आई. वो कमिटेड थी कि डीकॉलोनाइजेशन होना ही है. अब इस डीकॉलोनाइजेशन में चर्चिल एंड कंपनी, बड़ा सा नाम है, हम लोग एक नाम ले रहे हैं, उनका था कि भाई ये जो स्टर्लिंग बैलेंसेस है सेकेंड वर्ल्ड वॉर में जो इकट्ठे हुए हैं, ये हमको देना नहीं पड़े, निपटाना नहीं पड़े, और या इनको हम कागज में, बही खाते में इसको हम निपटा दें. दूसरा ये था कि भारत से जो वन वे ट्रांसफर ऑफ रिसोर्सेस 1757 से 1947 तक चल रहा था, वो इनसेसेंट अबाधित चलता रहे. इसके लिए एक गवर्नेंस का टूल और मैनुअल थमा के जाना था. और स्वाभाविक है कि गवर्नेंस उनके हाथ में देना था जो ब्रिटिशर्स के एलाइज थे, जिसमें गांधी जी और नेहरू टॉप पर हैं. अंग्रेजों ने कहा कि हम कांग्रेस के अध्यक्ष को ही हैंडओवर करेंगे, यानी वही प्राइम मिनिस्टर बनेगा. अध्यक्ष के चुनाव में जवाहरलाल नेहरू को एक सिंगल वोट नहीं मिला. अगले दिन उसको गांधी जी के द्वारा बदलवाया गया कांग्रेस वर्किंग कमेटी के फैसले. तो 1935 के एक्ट को फाइनली थमाया गया, थोड़ा चेंज वेंज इधर उधर करके. इस नेहरू और कांग्रेस के हाथ में, नेहरू गांधी वाले कांग्रेस के हाथ में, इन केस 47 या 48 के बाद इनको उठाकर फेंक दिया जाए. क्यों? क्योंकि नेहरू माइनॉरिटी में नहीं थे. नेहरू वॉइड एब इनिशियो थे. नेहरू को एक भी वोट कांग्रेस वर्किंग कमेटी में नहीं मिला. तो इतने अनपॉपुलर, कमजोर आदमी के हाथ में रेंस ऑफ पावर दे रहे हैं, तो सब कुछ लिखत पढ़त में हो, जबकि बताया गया कि इंग्लैंड के पास न कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन था न है. अब जो ये झंझट चल रहा है, इसलिए किसी भारतीय वैल्यू को तलाशने की जरूरत नहीं है. उसका सिंगल पर्पज था एक ऐसा गवर्नमेंट, और उस गवर्नमेंट का एक ऐसा मैनुअल जिसमें इंग्लैंड के इंटरेस्ट एज यूजुअल हैंडल होते रहे. ये सीधी सी बात. अब रही बात परमानेंस की, तो नेहरू कहते हैं कॉन्स्टिट्यूएंट असेंबली में पेज 322-323 पर 8/11/1948 को, देयर इज नो परमानेंस इन द कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन. देयर इज नो, नहीं है. पहला, नहीं होना चाहिए. देयर शुड बी अ सर्टेन फ्लेक्सिबिलिटी. इफ यू मेक एनीथिंग रिजिड एंड परमानेंट, you stop the nation's growth द ग्रोथ ऑफ ए लिविंग वाइटल ऑर्गेनिक पीपल। अरे भाजपाइयों को प्रॉब्लम क्या है भाई? नेहरू भक्त हो, नेहरू को कोट कर दो। नेहरू कह रहे हैं, वो मैं कोटेशन नहीं ढूंढ पा रही हूं, दिस इज अ हेस्टली ड्रॉन मैनुअल ऑफ गवर्नेंस, व्हेन वी विल बी इन लेजर वी विल ड्रॉ इट अगेन। नेहरू कह रहे हैं, नेहरू आपके आदर्श है, कम से कम अटल बिहारी जी के, लाल कृष्ण आडवाणी जी के तो आदर्श थे ही, उन्हीं को कोट करो ना भाई। न तो कांग्रेसी नेहरू को डिनाई कर पाएगा, न सपा, न बसपा, न वो ममता वाला, न केजरीवाल वाला। फिर वो कह रहे हैं, when the world is in turmoil and we are passing through a very swift period of transition, what we may do today may not be wholly capable tomorrow। मैं तो कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन वाली हूं नहीं, मैं पहले थी डेवलपमेंट इकोनॉमिक्स वाली, आजकल हूं जियोपॉलिटिक्स वाली। भारत पुनः कैसे अपने उसी स्थान पर प्रतिष्ठित हो जाए जिसकी चर्चा एंगस मेडिसन कह रहा है। ये बाय चांस डिफॉल्ट में यहाँ आ गई, 2-4 किताबों को देखा तो इतना मिल रहा है। केवल नेहरू को कोट करके इस मैनुअल को बदल दो, क्योंकि गाड़ी बदल गई है। अब एम्बेसडर नहीं है, फिएट नहीं है, ये स्टैंडर्ड गाड़ी भी नहीं है, ये कोई नई गाड़ियां जिनके नाम मैं नहीं जानती हूँ, वो गाड़ियां आ गई हैं, तो इसका मैनुअल भी बदला जाएगा। एक बात। दूसरी बात, जो सबसे बड़ा फार्स, वी द पीपुल ऑफ इंडिया, 1935 के एक्ट में वो कहते हैं जी ब्रिटिश क्राउन के बिहाफ पर हम ये एक्ट बना रहे हैं आपके गवर्नेंस के लिए। अब ये नालायक क्या कह रहे हैं, वी द पीपुल ऑफ इंडिया हैविंग solemnly resolved to constitute India into this and to secure all its citizens this। ये कह रहा है। अब ये खुद कह रहे हैं कि साहब अंग्रेज सरकार ने जिद किया कि हम तब जाएंगे जब तुम एक कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन बना लो, और उस कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन को बनाने के लिए 389 या कितने लोगों को उसने नियुक्त किया, उसमें से 299 बचे पार्टीशन के बाद। अब ये जो सज्जन है जिनको कहा जाता है कि जी फादर है, अब ये फादर मदर वाली जो कहानी है, जो लोग चर्च वर्च को पढ़े हैं वो जानते हैं, बाकियों को अपने माता पिता जैसी कोई चीज लगती है। तो ये फादर ऑफ नेशन कहते हैं, फादर ऑफ कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन कहते हैं। डॉक्टर B.R. अम्बेडकर इन हिज कंक्लूडिंग स्पीच इन कॉन्स्टिट्यूएंट असेंबली ऑन 25 November 1949 stated, the credit that is given to me does not really belong to me, it belongs to Sir B.N. Rao। BN कौन है? बेनेगल, अभी आ रहे हैं। It belongs to partly to Sir। नाइटहुड दिया है किसने? ब्रिटिश क्राउन ने। कौन है? ICS है, सिविल सर्वेंट है। कौन? बेनेगल नरसिम्हा राव। It belongs to Sir B.N. Rao, the constitutional advisor to the Constituent Assembly, who prepared a rough draft of the Constitution for the consideration of drafting committee। 12 फरवरी को बेनेगल नरसिम्हा राव, जो एक सिविल सर्वेंट है, उसने बनाकर धर दिया। ड्राफ्टिंग कमेटी बनती है, एक मिनट, ड्राफ्टिंग कमेटी जहां तक मेरा ध्यान है बनती है कभी अगस्त में। इस ड्राफ्टिंग कमेटी में 7 आदमी हैं, चेयर्ड बाय अम्बेडकर। इस ड्राफ्टिंग कमेटी के कंसिडरेशन के लिए ब्रिटिश सरकार का ICS सर बेनेगल एक ड्राफ्ट बना के दे देता है। सबके लिए नहीं है, वी द पीपुल को तो बना ही नहीं, क्या पता है, असेंबली को भी नहीं पता है, कॉन्स्टिट्यूएंट असेंबली को भी नहीं पता है, केवल ड्राफ्टिंग कमेटी के लिए। और ये कह कौन रहा है? उसका चेयरमैन कह रहा है। अब अभी ड्राफ्टिंग कमेटी को देख लीजिए, TT कृष्णामाचारी, कॉन्स्टिट्यूएंट असेंबली में कह रहे हैं, मिस्टर प्रेसिडेंट सर, आई एम वन ऑफ दोज इन द हाउस हु हैव लिसन्ड टू डॉक्टर अंबेडकर वेरी केयरफुली. I am fully aware of the amount of work and enthusiasm that he has brought to bear on the work of drafting this constitution. At the same time, I do realize the amount of attention that was necessary for the purpose of drafting a constitution so important to us at this moment has not been given to it by the drafting committee. Constituent Assembly में कहा जा रहा है 7 मेंबर हैं. The House is perhaps aware that of the 7 members nominated by you, not elected by you, nominated by you, one has resigned from the House but was replaced. One died, not replaced. One was away in America and his place was not filled up. Another person was engaged in state affairs and there was a void to that extent. 3 गए, एक मर गया, एक अमेरिका में है, एक स्टेट अफेयर में है. 1 or 2 people were far away from Delhi and perhaps reasons of health did not permit them to attend. 5 गए. So it happened ultimately that the burden of drafting this constitution fell on Dr. Ambedkar. And I have no doubt that we are grateful to him for having achieved this task in a manner which is undoubtedly commendable. और अंबेडकर महोदय कह रहे हैं जी क्रेडिट मुझे दे रहे हो, लेकिन ये मामला तो है कि ये राव साहब ने बनाया है. अब सर बेनेगल नरसिम्हा राव कौन है? अ सिविल सर्वेंट, आगे उनका डिटेल है. was appointed as the Assembly's constitutional advisor in 1946. ड्राफ्टिंग कमेटी बनी है 47 अगस्त में, ये हो गए हैं 46 में और फरवरी में ड्राफ्ट तैयार है. Responsible for the Constitution's general structure, Rao prepared his initial draft in February 1948. 48. तो जो खास बात है, we the people, ये कितना बड़ा फार्स है इसके लिए एक उदाहरण काफी होगा. वो 1860 में विक्टोरिया ने खुद को भारत का इम्प्रेस घोषित किया और इम्प्रेस घोषित करने के बाद एक डिक्लेरेशन दिया कि हम ये करेंगे और हम ये नहीं करेंगे. और 1860 में पूरे भारत में डुगडुगी पीट के गली गली कोने कोने उस हिस्से में जहां अंग्रेजों का राज्य था ये कहा गया, अखबारों में छापा गया, दीवारों पर चिपकाया गया. लेकिन ये जो कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन बना ये भारत वालों से पूछा गया? नहीं पूछा गया, बना लिया गया. तो क्यों नहीं लिखा? वी द इंडियन नेशनल कांग्रेस या जो हैं वो रिप्रेजेंटेटिव अंग्रेजों के कहने से जिन्ना को, नेहरू को प्राइम मिनिस्टर जल्दी से बन जाने के लिए एक कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन एक्सेप्ट कर रहे हैं. जैसे कि गुरु गोलवलकर जी को सरदार पटेल ने कहा कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन बनाओ. सरदार पटेल ने कहा कि आप राष्ट्रीय स्वयंसेवक संघ के सभी प्रचारकों को कांग्रेस सेवा दल या क्या है उसमें विलीन कर दो. क्यों भाई, आरएसएस में है तो कम्युनल है और तुम्हारे पास आ जाएंगे तो तुम्हारा काम बन जाएगा. क्या 1947 के जब 20 को अडॉप्ट किया, 1949 नवंबर में आया, 50 में शायद फरवरी में जनवरी में अडॉप्ट किया. आपने देश को बताया कि तुम्हारे नाम पर हमने किया. लगातार जो इलेक्शन हो रहा है ये क्या कह रहे हैं जी, लोकतंत्र का उत्सव है. तो लोकतंत्र के उत्सव में क्या तुमने बताया कि तुमसे जो टैक्स का पैसा हम ले रहे हैं उस पैसे से तुम अपने ही स्कूल में गीता नहीं पढ़ा सकते हो, तुम अपने ही स्कूल में वेद नहीं पढ़ा सकते हो, तुम वाल्मीकि कृत रामायण भी नहीं पढ़ा सकते हो, तुम रघुवंशम भी नहीं पढ़ सकते हो, तुम धर्म की शिक्षा नहीं दे सकते हो. किंतु वी जिनको तुमने चुना है, तुमने एक ऐसा कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन चुना है, ये फार्स में कह रहे हैं, जो कानून के तोड़ने वाले, किस प्रकार का कानून? रेप करने वाले, मर्डर करने वाले। कल से मेरा खून खौल रहा है जब से वो नाहिद हसीन, कौन है, कैराना वाले का समर्थकों का ये वीडियो चल रहा है कि तुम 20,000 हो, हम 90,000 हैं और तुम्हारा ये हम सब कर देंगे। ये लोग लेजिस्लेट करेंगे, या साधारण भाषा में कहूं, आप सब तो एक्सपर्ट्स हैं, कि भारत के अपराधी भारत का कानून बनाएंगे, भारत की जनता के सिर पर कील ठोकने के लिए, और ये सब काम भारत की जनता ने किया। यही तो ये कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन कह रहा है। मेरी समझ से मैंने 5 मिनट से ज्यादा ले लिया।
बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद कुसुमलता जी, एज यूजुअल बहुत आर्टिकुलेट और बहुत प्रोवोकेटिव। आई थिंक आनंद से भी शॉक्ड टू हियर what she says, but she has made some points. ये खुला मंच है, मैं किसी को भी टोकता नहीं हूँ, मैं किसी की बात को रोकता नहीं हूँ, क्योंकि ये खुले मंच का डिस्कशन है, ट्रूली रिपब्लिक डिस्कशन है ये। अभी मैं सबसे प्रार्थना करूंगा that for every query that I have, try to limit your comments in 2 to 3 minutes because we are already done 40 minutes. So I'll begin with the first question I have in mind, that the key element of Bharatiya thought is balance of rights and duties. क्योंकि भारत के अंदर पितृ ऋण की बात करते हैं, पुत्र ऋण की बात करते हैं, गुरु ऋण की बात करते हैं। We talk about debt to the guru, debt to the mother and father, and also debt to the society. So we balance our duties along with our rights. Unfortunately, the constitution talked only about rights, and when rights were suppressed, a clause was added as kind of upadesh that we also have duties. But there was no link between the duties and the rights. This was introduced in 1976 when the rights of the people had already been suppressed very badly during emergency. So this balance of rights with duties, because that is what Dharma says. And when Modi ji talked about it a few days back, there was huge uproar. Why you are saying that you also have duties, we only have rights, etc., etc. So coming to that balance between the rights and the duties, I would like to open with R Venkatesh, because that is his pet subject. R Venkatesh.
See, as far as a constitution which is pivoted on only rights is basically a dysfunctional one, especially people like us who are a dharmic society. And even today, when we talk about our own society, there is huge amount of dharmic balances left. And that is how the society is still functional. Otherwise, you don't man this country with, say, 50,000 police stations for around 7 lakh villages. It's because the people believe in the order, their dharmic duty, their dharmic order, and they believe in that the rule of law is existent because of the rule of dharma, and rule of dharma is supreme. And each one functions to the best of his duties. But the problem is the state interjects these duties and interjects and tries to tell us that, look, you don't have to perform your duties. All that you have to wait is be supinely indifferent, and the state would somehow or the other help you out, and you have to only ask for the rights. And this rights-based idea, as I have argued in my book, predominantly comes from the Christendom. It is rights is never a Hindu-based or a civilization-based idea, especially for Bharatiyas. We only believe in duties. Rights is imposed on us. It is an alien thought. It's an alien concept. Now, if you have to, and I'm not against rights. I would love these rights to also continue, but counterbalance these with duties and make these duties justiciable. And I've given examples of a Mexican constitution. The Mexican constitution believes that if you get married and have children, it is your duty to ensure that the children go to schools and get educated. In this country, it is the fundamental right to get educated. I don't understand what do you mean by fundamental right to get educated. It is the duty of the parents to get the children educated. It is why they bear the children, and it is their responsibility. In fact, one extreme was that in High Court hearing, a sitting judge of High Court has said that it is the duty of the state to feed a person even if he is absolutely lazy and doesn't want to work, and he must be fed 3 times a day. Now, it is very nice to hear such utopian ideas, but the fact of the matter is, who is going to provide money to the state? The state cannot be borrowing. Today, we are in a reckless borrowing spree, and we are borrowing from our next generation to such an extent that it is now no longer seen as a viable finance for the next generation, as we will leave it to the next generation. And the finances of the state are in a horrendous situation. So all these things raises a very important question, whether we must be a welfare state or the state must aim at the welfare of the people. The state must obviously aim at the data. It must obviously aim for the welfare of the people. But we have said the state is a welfare state. I don't know from where we got this idea, especially convoluted idea of a welfare state. It rhymes nicely. And Article 38 of the Constitution, which deals with this subject, unfortunately has been twisted even by the courts to suggest that we are a welfare state. And that is basically because of the hydraulic pressure of socialism and welfareism that Nehru brought in. And this has brought us to this extent that if we are a private company, we will not even be referred to NCLT. We will be, as a state, referred to liquidator's office for being liquidated. So this must be borne in mind as to the seriousness of the issue, that today we are not a solvent country. We are basically an insolvent country. I don't want to give the numbers that will frighten many of the viewers here. But the numbers are really, really worrying for me as I would see what we would leave it for the next generation. Ratanji, you are not audible.
But I seem to be.
No, again you have switched. Now it's okay.
Now, yeah. Anand, your comments.
This must be one of the, I think, the exceptional debate where we are talking, no one's heckling anyone else, and yet my blood pressure is rising so much. And I have to admit, it is this is a lesson for the viewers and listeners कि सिर्फ लड़ाई, heckling, हाथापाई से ही BP नहीं बढ़ता. Philosophical discussion आप कर रहे हो और अगर आप उसमें आप घुस जाएं, तो when you start lamenting what the state has done over the last 70 years, how it has bit by bit destroyed our civilization, तो आपका खून, अगर आप human हैं, तो आपका खून खोलेगा. और वे मेरा अभी खून खोल रहा है जो एमआर ने बात करी है. आई एम सॉरी, जब आदमी को गुस्सा आता है तो वो अपनी मातृभाषा में बात करता है, तो इंग्लिश छोड़ के मैं हिंदी में ही गुस्सा हो रहा हूँ. सो प्लीज डोंट माइंड दैट. बट द फैक्ट ऑफ द मैटर इज,
अच्छा तमिल में नहीं गए आप.
Let's not go down that road, sir. No, but you see, the fact of the matter is, when MR is talking about welfare state, when MR is talking about the roles or the rules or the responsibility of the state, I am at little bit variance with MR that I don't mind a welfare state being there. But the point is, you cannot be a welfare state based on socialism. The only way socialism can work is if it is in a capitalist state. Let us be honest about it. That is why you have the Nordic countries who are that are welfare states, but they are capitalistic societies. That is how they earn money, and then they can distribute it in a welfare state. यहाँ पे हम उल्टा कर रहे हैं. हम ना स्टेट भी सोशलिज्म से चला रहे हैं, सबको लोन वेवर्स दे रहे हैं, सबकी रिस्पॉन्सिबिलिटी ले रखी है, लेकिन कह रहे हैं कि हाँ भाई हम वेलफेयर स्टेट होगा. आप जस्ट टू गिव यू वन absurd example. Now I don't want to go down the road of there are RSS and BJP people who've taken pride in the fact that they are actually not right wing, but they are economically left wing. अभी दो तीन हफ्ते पहले किसी ने कहा था, मैं उनका नाम भूल गया. It was like unbelievable, कि वो तो they were like scoffing at the right wing. हम तो भाई we are proudly left wing, economically we are left. अब ये फार्म के लॉज हैं, ये मोदी जी ने कहा है, इसीलिए मेरा खून खोल रहा था. मैं इस पे जाऊंगा भी नहीं, बस ये 10 सेकंड लगाऊंगा कि जब मोदी जी ने कहा कि भाई मैंने ये फार्मर्स के लिए मैं ये फार्म बिल लाया था और देश के लिए वापस ले रहा हूं. आई एम सॉरी, आप देश के लिए लाए थे और ये आप फार्मर्स, सेल्फिश फार्मर्स और अरहतियाज और मिडलमैन के लिए वापस ले रहे हो. We have now regressed at least, I would say, 30 to 40 years because Mr. Modi has taken back and repealed these amazing farm laws. God knows for what reason, but it cannot be the reason in the hit of our country. So this is a welfare state gone rogue. Number two, why blame just the politicians? अभी आप देख रहे होंगे पिछले हफ्ते में एक न्यूज आ रही है बिजार. सुप्रीम कोर्ट कह रहा है कि जो कोविड रिलेटेड मोर्टेलिटीज हैं, स्टेट शुड कॉम्पनसेट. Now, do you find the absurdity of it? That here is a virus that has come from outside. The state has got nothing to do with willfully infecting Indians with this thing. The responsibility of the state is not there. You can say कि हाँ कभी ऑक्सीजन नहीं मिली, उसमें culpability है, negligence में आप ला सकते हो, but first wave में जो deaths हुई थी उसमें state का, ऐसे तो हर चीज में state का role है. But the fact is, the judiciary wants the state to compensate for people who've died of a viral infection. It is bizarre. Why? I mean, you just think about it. Tomorrow you're going to say that, look, I have died of tuberculosis. I want the state to compensate. It is a viral infection. You know how many mortalities that happen because of viral infections every year out of cold and flu? So, wo bhi state should compensate. This is, as MR was saying, we don't even, you see, the problem is we don't pause and think about the disastrous consequences. So when you have state being forced to pay billions and billions of dollars for something that the state is not culpable of, mostly, I'm taking out the negligence part of it, but that obviously you can have other law cases, and Supreme Court wasn't talking of the negligence of the state. Supreme Court wasn't saying that the state has been negligent and that is why it must, pay compensation. It was saying it must pay compensation to anyone, the family of anyone who's died of COVID. This is bizarre, and this kind of augments what MR is saying, that we have become such a silly, absurd. It's like Goddard having written our constitution, to be honest. It's just it's so bizarre. So I just thought I'll give these a couple of things that my blood is boiling because of this.
Thanks, Anand. Because we need a calm head with a boiling blood, that's also important. We want to discuss this issue. I'll come to Kusumlata ji on this issue of balancing rights versus duties.
ये लगता है कि कुछ बातों की चर्चा हमको, ये जो 1950 में ये जो संविधान जिसने भी बनाया, सिविल सर्वेंट ने, जिसको कि अंबेडकर साहब ने अडॉप्ट किया, नेहरू ने देश के ऊपर वी द पीपल के नाम पर थोप दिया, उसको अलग करके बात करना पड़ेगा, क्योंकि उसका हमारे भलाई से कोई लेना देना नहीं है. तो भारत में क्या था नागरिकों का कर्तव्य, भारत में क्या था राजा का कर्तव्य, क्या था मनुष्य होने के नाते हमारा धर्म, कर्तव्य शब्द भी नहीं है, हमारा धर्म क्या था. तो मुझे ज्यादा तो ये सब नहीं आता है, लेकिन जो एक मोटी बुद्धि है उसके अनुसार मैं कह रही हूँ. मेरा कर्तव्य है मोटी बुद्धि, इस राष्ट्र को, जो संघ की प्रार्थना है, परम वैभव को ले जाना, उसके लिए स्वयं कंटकाकीर्ण मार्ग को स्वीकृत करना, उसके लिए जो कुछ आवश्यक गुणों का संवर्धन है वो स्वयं में करना. और स्वाभाविक है ये सब एक व्यक्ति आज से 200 साल पहले, 1000 साल पहले या 10,000 साल पहले इसलिए कर पाता था कि एक ऐसा राज्य था जो धर्म दंड से शासित था, जिस राज्य में दंड नीति पूरी स्पष्ट थी और प्रखरता के द्वारा संचालित थी, जिसमें कंटक शोधन नियमित था, जिसमें आतताई का निकंदन राजा का कर्तव्य था. अब एक ऐसे राज्य में, मैं भोपाल में इस समय बैठी हुई हूँ, मुझे ध्यान है 2019 में ये मई जून के महीने में मध्य प्रदेश की कई सड़कों पर जुलूस निकला कि हम हिंदू स्त्रियों का बलात्कार करेंगे. जुलूस निकला बाकायदा, और एक सरकार बैठी हुई है. तो कुछ हुआ हवाया नहीं, होता नहीं है. फिर कुछ लोगों से मिले हम, तो कहा जी अपनी रक्षा तो स्वयं ही करनी पड़ेगी. तो अगर राज्य ऐसा है जिसमें नागरिक के प्राण की रक्षा, संपत्ति की रक्षा, उसके डिग्निटी की रक्षा नहीं है, तो नागरिक का प्रथम कर्तव्य है एक ऐसे श्रेष्ठ शासक को लाना जो ऐसी सुव्यवस्था हमको दे सके। ये वर्तमान समय में, आज के समय में, जब भारत के बहुसंख्यक समाज, और मैं खुद को कह रही हूं आई एम अ पावरफुल पर्सन, एक पुस्तक अभी लिखी बनावटी मुसलमान, छप भी गई, उसमें यही है कि द सूडो मुस्लिम्स for whom their religion is a license for lawlessness and which is a challenge to state। ऐसी माने थॉरो इंटेलेक्चुअल किताब को मैं अपने नाम से नहीं छपवा पाई, तो आज के दिन तो भारतीयों का कर्तव्य है, प्रथम कर्तव्य है, जो भी वर्तमान परिस्थिति में संभव है ऐसे शासन को लाने का प्रयास करना जिसमें हम मनुष्य होने के कर्तव्यों के साथ बिना भय के जी सके। ये पहला कर्तव्य है, और बाकी तो डिटेल में सब चल रहा है। प्रथम कर्तव्य, क्योंकि वॉइड अब इनिशियो में तो कोई काम होगा नहीं, इस समय हम क्या कर सकते हैं इस पर बात हो रही है, क्योंकि संविधान तो जी जब बनेगा तब बनेगा, और अगर संविधान में एक स्वस्थ स्टेट में नागरिक का कर्तव्य क्या है, तो एक स्वस्थ स्टेट में, एक स्वस्थ राज्य में एक स्वस्थ नागरिक का कर्तव्य है अपने राष्ट्र को सबलता के साथ इस प्रकार से स्थापित होने देना जिसमें केवल उस राज्य के नागरिकों का जीवन सुरक्षित न हो वरन विश्व शांति और विश्व कल्याण संभव हो। इसके ज्यादा डिटेल में जाने का योग्यता मुझ में नहीं, मेरा विषय नहीं।
बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद कुसुमलता दीदी। राहुल, एनी पॉइंट टू ऐड टू दिस?
संक्षेप में ही ऐड करूंगा कि शायद ये सबसे क्रूशल एक तरीके से डिफरेंस है, और शायद इसलिए पहला जो आपने उठाया ये सवाल राइट्स वर्सेस ड्यूटीज का, क्योंकि इन सम सेंस जो धर्म जो शब्द है, जैसा कुसुम दीदी ने भी बोला कि उसका मतलब ही ड्यूटी है, तो ये तो एक हमारे कोर भारतीय वैल्यू थी जिसको इतना तरजीह दिया ही नहीं गया कॉन्स्टिट्यूएंट असेंबली में। राइट्स की बात हुई और ये जो फंडामेंटल ड्यूटीज जो अगेन आई थिंक इमरजेंसी के दौरान ही एक खाना पूर्ति कर दी गई, उसको ऐड किया गया, और जिससे आनंद का वापस बीपी हाई हो जाएगा कि उसमें साइंटिफिक टेम्पर डाल दिया गया। लेकिन वो ये कौन सी ड्यूटी है भाई? और ये साफ सी बात है कि राइट्स को जितना वैल्यू दिया गया है हमारे यहाँ, और उसके दूर दूर तक कहीं ड्यूटीज का कोई नामो निशान है ही नहीं, उसको वो सेम पेडेस्टल पे रखा नहीं गया है। और एक्चुअली देखा जाए तो वन कैन वेरी वेल, वेरी कोजेंटली एंड वेरी स्ट्रांगली आर्ग्यू कि ये एक मेन डिफरेंस हो सकता है जिससे कई सारी प्रॉब्लम्स हैं हमारे समाज में, हमारे गवर्नेंस में। जब आप सिर्फ राइट्स 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 करते हैं तो एक तरीके से आप खुद ही अदर कर देते हैं लोगों को, है ना। ये लिबरल्स का बहुत एक उनका फेवरेट टर्म है कि वी डोंट हैव टू अदर पीपल, सच थिंग्स आर अदरिंग a specific community and all that। तो जब आप राइट्स 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 जब दिमाग में लोगों के भर जाता है तो भाई किससे राइट्स, आप सद्दा हक ऐते रख वाला आप मूड में आप हमेशा रहते हैं, तो आप हमेशा ये जो विक्टिमहुड मेंटालिटी एक तरीके से है जो कि लगभग इस देश के हर कम्युनिटी में है, उसकी एक वजह ये भी आर्ग्यू की जा सकती है कि इसीलिए है कि दिन भर कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन में या इस तरीके से आपने सिर्फ राइट्स 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 ही भर दिए हैं, तो सबके दिमाग में वही है कि हाँ मेरे पास तो ये राइट्स है और मुझे मिल नहीं रहा है। ड्यूटीज की कहीं बात ही नहीं होती, जो कि एक तरीके से कोर है हमारे वैल्यूज का, सिविलाइजेशन का, धर्म का। रिलीजन और धर्म पर्यायवाची शब्द नहीं है, ड्यूटी एक तरीके से जो है वो धर्म थी और वही गायब हो गई। अगर कोर्ट को भी अपने धर्म का, अपने ड्यूटी का वो रहता, एहसास रहता, तो शायद उनको भी पता चलता कि इतने लाखों केसेस पेंडिंग रहते हैं उस पे ध्यान दो, वो आपकी ड्यूटी है, न कि बेमतलब में इधर उधर मुंह मारते चलो और बताते चलो कि ये क्यों नहीं कर लेते, वो क्यों नहीं कर लेते। तो ये तो आई थिंक शायद बहुत इम्पोर्टेंट, आई थिंक दिस इज अ कोर थिंग दैट वी शुड बी टॉकिंग अबाउट, लोगों को बताना चाहिए। और ये एक सहज और सिंपल तरीके से भी लोगों को हम बता सकते हैं और ये बात समझ में आएगी कि कितना ये जो हमने अपने वैल्यूज को दरकिनार किया एक तरीके से, या क्यों कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन को रीलुक करने की जरूरत है, कि ड्यूटीज का नामो निशान ही नहीं था जो कि हमारे कल्चर का एक, हमारे वैल्यूज का एक बिल्कुल कोर वो पार्ट है, और उसकी वजह से कई सारे प्रॉब्लम्स हैं। तो मैं संक्षिप्त में इतना ही कहूंगा। मेरे लिए तो जैसे मैंने शुरू में कहा था कि आई हैव कम हियर एज ए लर्नर, दिस इज वन ऑफ द बिगेस्ट लर्निंग आई एम टेकिंग अवे, कि एक्चुअली जो ये राइट्स वर्सेस ड्यूटीज वाली जो बात है, दिस इज वेरी स्ट्रांग एंड वेरी वैलिड।
मैं इसमें धर्म के एक उदाहरण दूंगा आपको, ड्यूटी का उदाहरण दूंगा। कोविड के दौरान सारी दुनिया में जितना काम समाज ने पीड़ितों के लिए किया है, इतना दुनिया में किसी ने नहीं किया। बाकी सब जगह सरकार की ओर देखा गया, लाखों लोग मर गए, वही बातें की गई, लेकिन हमारे देश में उसको लोगों ने संभाला। जितने लोगों ने संभाला, शायद इसके कारण ये जो आपदा थी इतनी कम आगे बढ़ी। लोगों ने काफी जुडिशरी की बात की है, बहुत बड़ा विषय, उसको मैं नहीं लाऊंगा। मैं अगले पॉइंट पे जाऊंगा, उसके पहले आनंद ने उंगली उठाई है, तो आनंद जी
हाँ,
उंगली
आई एम
उठाई है
सो
तो
सॉरी
उंगली
कि
मत
मतलब
करिएगा, बताइएगा, उंगली मत करिएगा।
मतलब सिचुएशन मेरे इतनी ज्यादा, मैं इतना गंदा आदमी बन गया हूं कि मैं इतनी सिविलाइज डिबेट में भी उंगली उठा रहा हूं। मतलब इससे ज्यादा शर्म की बात नहीं हो सकती। आई अपोलोजाइज। बट मुझे एक बात याद आ गई रतन जी, आपने बात कही ना, जो मैं कह रहा था, स्टेट सुप्रीम कोर्ट इज आस्किंग द स्टेट टू कॉम्पेंसेट फॉर द मोर्टेलिटी ऑफ द पीपल हु डाइड इन कोविड। उसमें राइट्स एंड ड्यूटीज की बात अगर आप लाएं, तो ये सिटीजन्स की ड्यूटीज नहीं थी कि 6 फुट डिस्टेंस रखते, मास्क पहनते। अब ऐसे करोड़ों लोगों ने नहीं पहना, उनमें से जो लोग मरे वो भी स्टेट की रिस्पॉन्सिबिलिटी है। सो यू सी हाउ बिजार इट इज। द पीपल हु देमसेल्व्स हैव फ्लाउटेड ऑल द रूल्स, हैव नॉट adhered to what their duties were. Their families are now demanding as their right that they be compensated. I mean, it is bizarre. I just wanted to point that out.
बिल्कुल बिल्कुल आपका सही है, और यही इसलिए मैंने ध्यान दिलाया कि कर्तव्य या धर्म और राइट्स में फर्क क्या और क्यों इनकी आवश्यकता है। अभी सबसे कंटेंशियस इश्यू जिसके ऊपर सभी बहुत भड़केंगे, सभी बहुत बोलना चाहेंगे, लेकिन फिर मैं प्रार्थना करूंगा कि समय की मर्यादा रखें, प्रश्नोत्तर भी हो सकते हैं। यह है आर्टिकल 25 to 30। यानी कहते ही आनंद बिल्कुल खड़े हो जाएंगे।
वो गोविंदा की मीम है, ऐसे टेबल पे हाथ रखता है, कहता है मैं निकलूं, मैं निकल रहा हूं।
तो इसमें मुख्य बात यह है कि मैं जो ये आर्टिकल्स पढ़ता हूँ, ये आर्टिकल माइनॉरिटीज के प्रोटेक्शन के लिए है, लेकिन मेजॉरिटी के एक्सप्लॉयटेशन के लिए नहीं है। लेकिन इनका उपयोग किया गया मेजॉरिटी के एक्सप्लॉयटेशन के लिए, जिसके अंदर आप इंस्टीट्यूशन चलाएं तो उसके अंदर अपने विषय नहीं रख सकते। आप आर्टिकल 25 के अंतर्गत टेम्पल्स को टेक ओवर कर सकते हैं। आप इसके अंदर रिलीजियस इंस्टीट्यूशन चला सकते हैं, स्मॉल ग्रुप्स, माइनॉरिटी शब्द का एक ही बार उपयोग हुआ है, तो इस तरह के लिंग्विस्टिक और रिलीजियस ग्रुप चला सकते हैं, लेकिन वो ग्रांटेड एड भी ले सकते हैं। ये एक बड़ी विचित्र बात मेरे ध्यान में आई। और इसी तरह आर्टिकल 28 में अगर आप स्टेट एडेड इंस्टीट्यूशन है तो आप रिलीजियस एजुकेशन नहीं दे सकते, लेकिन मदरसा स्टेज अगर स्टेट एडेड होगा तो दे सकता है। तो ये जो 25 to 30 आर्टिकल, जिसके ऊपर बहुत लोगों ने बहुत कुछ बोला है, सो आई विल नॉट से कि वी विल एक्सपाउंड ऑन मच, बट इसके अंदर कोई रिमार्क देना चाहे 2-3 मिनट का तो आप दे सकते हैं। कुसुमलता दीदी जी, आप शुरुआत करते हैं इस बार आपसे।
एक चीज बोलना चाहूंगी। ये प्रियम्बल कहता है, उसी पर आ रही हूं, जस्टिस, लिबर्टी, इक्वालिटी और फ्रेटर्निटी, भाईचारा। अब ये जिन आर्टिकल्स की आप चर्चा कर रहे हैं, वो कह रहा है कि स्टेट एक्सचेकर की फंडिंग से आप कुरान और बाइबल पढ़ाइए। केवल कह नहीं रहा है, पिछले 75 साल से पढ़ा रहा है। कुरान साफ साफ कह रहा है, मोमिन और काफिर, साफ साफ कह रहा है, बिना किसी बहस के कह रहा है। काफिर को मार दो, काट दो, छल करो, वो जो यहाँ भोपाल में निकला कि साहब रेप करो, छीन लो, जला दो, ये आप कह रहे हैं, ठीक ही कह रहे हैं, हो ही रहा है कि साहब इस संविधान की उस धारा के तहत उस पुस्तक को पढ़ाया जाएगा जो प्रियम्बल के इस फ्रेटर्निटी की धज्जी उड़ा। वो पोप कौन सा था जो अटल बिहारी वाजपेयी जी जब प्राइम मिनिस्टर थे तब आया था 99-98 में, जिसको चीन ने अपने घर में घुसने नहीं दिया था, और वो आके कहा जी हम तो अब यहाँ पर वो क्या सोल की फसल काटेंगे, सीधा सीधा जी हम हिंदुओं तुमको नाश करके तुमको हम कन्वर्ट करेंगे। और इस कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन के तहत उसको वेलकम किया गया। इसी कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन के तहत किसी ने आरोप नहीं लगाया अटल बिहारी जी पर, कोई मुकदमा नहीं चला कि साहब तुमने कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन का उल्लंघन किया है, किसी ने भी नहीं कहा। ये एक टेरेसा है जिसको सब मदर मदर कहने में लगे हुए हैं, हमारे वाजपेयी जी भी मदर मदर कहते हैं। ये टेरेसा जी क्या करती हैं कि जी ये इनका वॉइस ऑफ अमेरिका को एक इंटरव्यू था कि भाई पूछा गया आप क्यों कन्वर्ट करती हैं, मरते हुए को क्यों कन्वर्ट करती हैं, तो बोले जी वो कयामत के दिन शैतान और गॉड के राज्य का जो पॉपुलेशन होगा उसका सेंसस होगा, गॉड वाले में ज्यादा होंगे तो गॉड जीत जाएगा, शैतान वाले में ज्यादा होंगे तो शैतान जीत जाएगा जी, इसलिए हम तो कन्वर्ट करें। तो ये जो संविधान है जिस आप धारा 23 जिसकी बात कर रहे हैं, वो कह रहा है जी, उसमें लिखा नहीं है, उसका मतलब है जो देश में चल रहा है कि कुरान और बाइबिल पढ़ाया जाएगा। किसके? हमारे पैसे से, हमारे सर पर कील ठोक दी जाएगी। और ये संविधान कह रहा है वी द पीपल ऑफ इंडिया हैव सोलेमली रिजॉल्व, हमने अपने कील ठोकने की व्यवस्था खुद की है। जैसे रूस में, यूएसएसआर में, कम्युनिस्ट रूस में और कम्युनिस्ट चीन में आपको स्वयं को, वो सेल्फ क्रिटिसिज्म है ना, स्वयं का कचूमर स्वयं निकालना पड़ेगा। तो ये संविधान हिंदुओं को कहता है, मेजॉरिटी को कहता है। और लोकतंत्र क्या है जी? लोकतंत्र मेजॉरिटी का तंत्र है, जो बहुमत से होगा वही होगा, सर्वमत का तो बात ही नहीं करता है। जिसका ज्यादा वोट होगा उसका सरकार बनेगा, कानून पास होगा, वगैरह वगैरह। ये संविधान में हमको समझाया जा रहा है, और जिसको समझने का मन हो समझे। हमारे जैसे लाखों करोड़ों लोग हैं जो कोई समझने समझने वाले नहीं है कि साहब आपने अपने सिर पर कील ठोकने का उपाय खुद किया। और ये एक बात मैं और ऐड करना चाहूंगी पुराने वाले में, ये जो अधिकार वाला मामला था ये तो यूरोप से आया था ना, जहां चर्च ने क्रिश्चियनिटी के नाम पर स्त्री पुरुषों को पशु से, पशु को तो बहुत प्रेम से रखा जाता है, स्त्रियों के मुंह में और वेजिना में इंस्ट्रूमेंट फिट किए जाते थे। जो उसकी रानी होती थी उसको भी जब बैप्टाइज करते थे तो सारा कपड़ा उतार देते थे। और कैथोलिक प्रीस्ट जो अनमैरिड प्रीस्ट है उसकी ऑयलिंग वगैरह करता। ये जो काला कोट है ये उसके कील वील ठोकता था। तो जब चर्च को तोड़ा, क्रिश्चियनिटी के पैशाचिक तंत्र को तोड़ा, तब चर्च के पैशाचिक तंत्र से मुक्त यूरोप ने मनुष्य होने के नाते अपने अधिकारों की बात की थी। नेहरू एंड कंपनी ने वही बात किया। क्यों किया? क्योंकि लिखने वाला कौन था? वो कौन, नरसिम्हा, बेनेगल नरसिम्हा राव सर था। उस बेचारे को उसके बाहर की जानकारी तो नहीं थी। तो आप वाली बात में हम कुल इतना जोड़ रहे हैं, केवल देश में जरा उत्सव में फैला तो दो कि इस संविधान में तुम वेद नहीं पढ़ सकते हो, तुम गीता नहीं पढ़ सकते हो, लेकिन तुमको काट देने वाला, तुमको रेप करने वाला जो कुरान और बाइबल है, ये हम स्टेट फंडिंग से पढ़वाएंगे। जूता जूता और केवल जूता खाएंगे जो भी होगा, क्षमा चाहे, लेकिन ये सच है।
कुसुमलता दीदी
और
ने जो बोला,
ये बात हिम्मत हो तो, और हिम्मत नहीं हो तो आपके और मेरे जैसे लोगों को इस सोशल मीडिया के मार्फत सीधी सपाट भाषा में अगर कह दें माइनॉरिटी को एजुकेशन का राइट, किसी के क्या पल्ले पड़ेगा, तुमको काट देने का व्यवस्था है। किसके द्वारा? मोमिन के द्वारा नहीं, मुनाफिक के द्वारा। स्टेट का काम है मुनाफिक को शरिया लॉ के अधीन लाए, या ये जो भी एंग्लो सैक्सन इंडियन पीनल कोड के तहत लाए। ये काम स्टेट करेगा जब हम और आप खड़े होके सीधी साधी सपाट भाषा में जनता के आगे रख देंगे कि स्टेट पढ़वा रहा है उन किताबों को कि हिंदू स्त्रियों का रेप हो।
दीदी एज यूजुअल आपने बहुत ही ऐसी बातें कही जो हमें पता है, लेकिन वो जिस तरह से आपने बिल्कुल आंखें खोलने वाले तरीके से बताई, वो आपकी शैली है। MR Venkatesh, on this 25:30, we'll have to keep speaking a little sharper in a lesser time. Of course, it's your show, so you can speak, but then we'll try to have some question answer before you close. It's already 1 hour and 20 minutes. Mike, mute. You are on mute.
Okay. 25 to 30 requires a revisit along with the property rights. Also, property rights was a fundamental right at the beginning of the Constitution, but somewhere down the line we diluted it and took it out to become only a right, which was a fundamental right into a constitutional right. Now, as far as 26 is concerned, just read this 26. It's very important how it has been interpreted. Subject to public order, morality, and health, every religious denomination or any section thereof shall have the right to establish and maintain institutions for religious and charitable purposes, to manage its own affairs in matters of religion, to own and acquire movable and immovable property, and to administer such property in accordance with law. Now, 26 does not give a right to anybody to sell the property of any particular religious denomination, or the state to acquire the property of religious denomination, even in case of emergency. But coming from a state like Tamil Nadu, the Hindu temples have been literally taken over by the state, and the lands which are appurtenant to every temple, the temple tanks and the what we call as Mandavali, which is basically the grazing lands for the cows and other things, which were given by our forefathers to the temple. And it is basically the will of my forefathers which have been violated, and the state with all impunity has taken over the lands of my forefathers which were gifted to the temples. So this raises a very serious issue. In what way is this different from what Aurangzeb or Akbar would have done during their heydays? This is legitimization of what is happening under Aurangzeb or any of these Mughal rulers, and we are so happy about it, and we don't want to even talk about it. In fact, the ADM government passed a GO stating that they will regularize all encroachments into temple lands. Luckily, thanks to somebody, we went to the court and we got a stay. But the fact of the matter is, we can't be living on a day-to-day existence. We can't be on a daily wages as far as our temple or civilization is concerned. And so this 25 to 30 has to have a complete relook. Property rights, which were part of our fundamental rights, has to be reinstated as part of our fundamental rights. It cannot be taken over as some sort of a constitutional right. I'm sorry to say this was the original draft of the constitution, original structure, the basic structure of the constitution. That one pillar which said that property will be a fundamental right was taken away, and the superstructure is one pillar less. So these 2 points need to be revisited.
MR Venkatesh, I think many people are not aware that property rights are no more fundamental right. I think many people are not aware, so they'll be shocked when they hear what you say. Coming to another important point.
This was diluted during emergency, and is now embedded in Article 300A of the Constitution as a constitutional right. But it was originally in 19(1)(f), if I remember right. It was part of the fundamental rights.
Okay. Coming to another issue, these days there is a lot of talk of women's rights and women's position in the constitution. Triple talaq has been banned. There are many other issues where women are getting rights, but now there is a new thought which basically is trying to impinge upon the very marital status in Indian society. That is very commonly courts are talking about marital rape, and there are many such topics which have come up, whether it's divorce, whether it's marital rape, or whether it's family itself, right of families, HF, etc. So I will start with Kusumlata Didi because she is a woman and she must have been looking at this debate about. Okay, you don't want to speak right now. Okay, so I will invite Anand, who I think has been on the debate on this issue, or who may have thought about what's happening. So any comment on that? Where are we
Yeah,
going in terms of using constitution to disabuse ourselves of our right of family, right of conjugal bliss, or I can say husband-wife relationships?
yes, Ratan, before I come to this, in fact, I haven't really made my views public on this. I'm sure there would be a debate that would be there in the coming days, and I would. But I have my views on it, I'll tell you. But I just wanted to tell you that it was very refreshing to hear Kusumlata Didi's views on the previous question. It was really fantastic. And I think I have to say this, जिस स्कूल में मैं पढ़ा हूं लगता है उनकी प्रिंसिपल कुसुमलता दीदी रही है. So thank you very much for fantastic articulation, and she's absolutely right. I mean, it is more and more a sham, and why just restrict yourself to articles 25 and above? Look at article 21. It's in complete contradiction with article 25. I mean, right to life and dignity on one hand, and how can you say that a person can enjoy that at the same time would be culled, being thought of as a kafir, can be flogged, Sharia can come. So, I mean, the point of the matter is there is total contradiction. And the danger is not that contradictions exist. Believe me, because every religion has its own dictum, its own diktats, its own commandments. So there are contradictions. Even within the religion, even within Quran, there is contradiction. Although Allah says there is no contradiction. But the fact of the matter is it seeps into our psychology. That is when the danger comes, and that is why MR's book is a trendsetter, because when he talks about not just articles, he talks about this communal rights act, or I can't remember the exact word Sonia Gandhi was about to bring. Can you believe, Ratan?
Communal violence bill.
Communal violence bill. I'm so sorry. Communal violence bill where only Hindus would be punished. So this is a direct result of this kind of thinking, all pervasive thinking that look, other communities cannot do wrong.
Right to education.
Yes.
Right to education bill was amended. So right to education is only now the duty of majority community, not the minority community. Yes,
correct. And very quickly, two examples here where people have started thinking like that. You know, the thing is, it's like it's come to it almost like I mean, how shall I put it? It is, you talked about rights and duties. It is our right to be a bigot. Honestly, people have started thinking that. Why else would, when Parliament abolished leprosy as a ground for divorce, why would AIMIM and Owaisi object to that? Do you know? Owaisi said, no, we object to you removing leprosy as a ground of divorce, even though leprosy is more treatable than tuberculosis. Why? Because according to Sharia or according to his scriptures, leprosy is a valid grounds for divorce. Why is it that AIMIM does not believe in the Indian Child Marriage Act? Why? Because it is almost their right. It is their right to be different. And who has given them this right? I'm afraid Constitution. So I just wanted to harp on that ये हमारी psychology में जब तक psychology में नहीं जाता है, we are fine with it. But the problem is जब एक बार psychology में घुसना शुरू होता है ना, उसका अंत नहीं होता फिर आपको लटका दिया जाएगा. You will be stoned, you will be thrown from the rooftops. Then situation would be cataclysmic. So there's one thing to say, everyone is fine, everything is fine. The other thing is to strictly adhere to the constitution, which unfortunately no one is doing. Now, very briefly coming to,
I'll just add one more point, that it was only under so-called Hindu nationalist government that LGBT was decriminalized, if you recall. And none of the liberals, none of the leftists, none of the so-called illiberals or whatever they are called ever supported LGBT, because their allies were the people who actually would stone the people or kill the people who are deviant. So with that
And not only
background,
that,
are we really right about bringing out this point of, marital rape and trying to bring in some Western concept where women have been not treated equally, and now they want these kind of things like a revenge?
yeah, so I saw MRV raising his finger, but I'm going to prohibit that. MR has no right to interject. Only I have a right to interject. So MR, don't put your finger down. No, but very quickly, when you talked about Ratan, I must add to that only Hindus after independence have agreed to their laws being changed. If you look at the Hindu Code Bill, 1950, have the Muslims' laws been changed? Quite the opposite. When the Supreme Court said, it kind of little bit went against the Quran as far as the Shah Bano thing is concerned, the government overturned the Supreme Court judgment. Triple talaq is different because that is not in Quran. But even there in that judgment, if you look at triple talaq judgment, one of the Supreme Court judges says, it is not in Quran, therefore we need not follow it. Now that is scary to me. It is scary because what if it was in Quran? That means you would happily accept.
Polygamy.
You would happily accept. Correct. So, the point is, we are so scared of MRV is interjecting me because as is his habit. But, the point is, we are so scared of religion. The Supreme Court is so scared that anything that is not related to Quran or religion, happily change it and say, oh, look, we are so progressive. अरे भाई असली दम तो वो है जब डिस्क्रिमिनेशन रिलीजन कर रहा है और आपकी हिम्मत हो जो 1980s में सुप्रीम कोर्ट ने किया था जस्टिस चंद्रचूड़ और मैं उनका नाम भूल गया जो आई थिंक जस्टिस चंद्रचूड़ जिन्होंने शाह बानो जजमेंट दी थी वो हिम्मत का काम था ट्रिपल तलाक हिम्मत का काम नहीं है
Ratanji, I would like to add one very interesting thing that has happened recently in Tamil Nadu, that a girl of around 14 years old committed suicide because she was forced to convert into Christianity by her school authorities. I will leave the political part of it. The reaction to it from a Christian priest is that conversion is our right. Suicide is our choice. So हम जो करना है करेंगे. And this has come in open and it is so shocking that conversion is my right and if you commit suicide out of pressure, that's your problem. Now, I want the debate to go ahead. I just wanted to add to what Anand was trying to say.
You want to add to this current controversy about the marital rape, etc.? You have any point of view on that?
Yeah, I just wanted to, sorry, I forgot about, I believe, sorry, Ratanji,
दीदी एक मिनट आपको बुलाते हैं हाँ जी बोलिए आनंद.
Yeah, no, I am for this law because I believe consent doesn't need to be confined to out of bedroom or in bedroom. Consent is consent, and of course there would be, as many people are saying, there would be how shall I put it, violations of the law, that people would use that law unfairly. Well, I mean, there should be kind of tight regulations. I'm not sure whether it is impossible to bring those. No, that's not true. It is always possible to, refine a law, make it an excellent law. But on the philosophical side of it, I am with it because a consent should not be restricted that it cannot enter the bedroom. Consent is consent everywhere. That is my view.
Okay. हाँ जी कुसुमलता दीदी.
मैं बोलना नहीं चाहती थी लेकिन बोल रही हूँ. भाई ये जो रेप लॉ है इसमें इसका जो आधार है ये एंग्लो सेक्शन लॉ है. वुमन एंजॉयज रेप. सो रेप इज ऑलवेज विद द कंसेंट ऑफ वुमन. इसीलिए कोर्ट में ये उससे प्रश्न पूछे जाते हैं कि रेप कैसे कंडक्ट हुआ. तो भाई यहाँ चोट लगी, वहां चोट लगी, यहाँ लगी, वहां लगी. तो अगर बहुत चोट लगी तो आपका कंसेंट नहीं था. अब ये मैं बोलना नहीं चाह रही थी, संघ वाले हैं, सब सज्जन लोग हैं, लेकिन अब कहना पड़ रहा है. जो क्रिश्चियनिटी है उसमें ये बहुत महत्वपूर्ण बात है, शायद हमारे जजेस लोगों को भी नहीं पता होगा. Woman is afterthought. She is not like man, she is woman. In the original scheme of creation, Eve was not there. God made everyone in pair, but like himself, he made only Adam. केवल अपने जैसा उसने एडम को बनाया. एडम एक दिन देखा कि वो गार्डन ऑफ ईडन में सोया है, उदास है, तो पसली खींचा और ईव को बनाया. अब ये जो ईव है, इसको जो गॉड का राइवल शैतान है, उसका क्या तो नाम है, वो शैतान फुसला लेता है. क्यों फुसला लेता है? ये पिलपिली है. ये कहाँ का थॉट है? बाइबल का थॉट है, चर्च का थॉट है. इसका ईसा मसीह से कोई लेना ही देना नहीं है भाई. ईसा मसीह नाम का कोई प्राणी हुआ ही नहीं. ये यूरोप के क्रिश्चियनिटी में स्टैब्लिश्ड है डेड सी स्क्रोल्स के बाद. तो ये चर्च और बाइबल का क्रिएशन है. और इसमें ये है कि इसको कहता है, इस ईविल को, इस ईव को, कि तू एडम को फुसला उस सेव को खाने के लिए. सेव कुछ नहीं है, मैन वुमन फिजिकल रिलेशनशिप है. एडम फुसलाती है. शी इज एन अडल्टरेस, शी इज सेड्यूसर, शी इज बहुत सारी बात है. तो ये सेड्यूस करती है आदमी को. तो इस एंग्लो सेक्शन कानून के रहते हुए इस पर अलग से कभी कहिएगा. आज सबके सामने मैं नहीं बोल पाऊंगी. घंटे भर इस विषय पर विस्तार से बोल दूंगी. और शायद मैं अकेली नॉन यूरोपियन स्त्री हूं, शायद, जिसने उन चीजों को लिखा जो यूरोपियन लैंग्वेज में लिखना ऑब्स्सिनिटी एक्ट में बैन है. आज के डिबेट में तो नहीं बोल पाऊंगी, लेकिन इतना बता रही हूं.
बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद, आपने इतना कुछ बता दिया बिना कुछ खास कहे. राहुल, you want to add to anything on this point?
On specifically marital rape, I won't have
Talking of
much.
basically issue of justice to women, and also about this, which is the current hot topic about marital rape.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, like Anand, I would
जरूरी
also.
नहीं, आप नहीं कहना चाहते तो नहीं कह सकते हैं, कोई जरूरी
No,
नहीं
no,
है.
no. There is nothing to mince words. I mean, that exception in 375, I think that should go, because that in a way, can be interpreted that a husband has a license to rape. So, so that exception in that sense looks pretty odd. Now, what after that definitely needs to be well thought of. That mere exception in that literal sense looks pretty bad. That a man will commit rape except with his wife. So in a way, you are saying that a man can rape his wife. So that should go. But the debate and the work does not end there. Is all I would want to say. Say currently that remove that exception, but there would be much to do afterwards. Briefly, I would go back to very important Article 25 to 30. I mean, I completely fail to understand that how did that even happen? I mean, that definitely wasn't inspired by Indian ethos for sure. But लेकिन कौन सा ethos? ऐसा ये है कहाँ? ये इस तरह की चीजें you don't find in US Constitution, in UK में तो खैर written Constitution है ही नहीं. कोई भी Constitution, कहाँ के Constitution में से इंस्पायर होके हमने ये किया था? I think ये out of just shame and guilt of what happened in 1947, जबरदस्ती अपने आप पे थोप लिया. एक नेहरूवियन थॉट प्रोसेस था ये. It was neither European nor Indian. It was purely Nehruvian thing that led to this Article 25 and 30, that we Hindus were assumed कि ये तो कुछ गड़बड़ करेंगे ही, so minorities need to be protected. That's a uniquely Nehruvian kind of stuff that we came up. It's neither European nor French, out of French Revolution, nor UK, US, nothing. So that this 25 to 30 definitely needs to go. चाहे आप Anglophile हो, चाहे आप Indophile हो, whatever file हो, except Nehruphile. And like communal violence bill की जो बात हुई थी, क्योंकि ये सारी चीजें हम 25 to 30 को, because we are not doing away with it, because we are not either reforming it or changing it. So even without communal violence bill becoming an act, we have just seen in in Delhi the first conviction in Delhi riots, the Delhi riots of February 2020, has happened to a guy called Dinesh Yadav. Now there was court in its judgment itself it writes that there are no direct proof of Dinesh Yadav doing any crime. What was the crime? That a Muslim woman's house was looted, her buffalo was stolen. And there is really, he hasn't been accused of killing anyone or anything. This is the crime, and this is for this he has been convicted. What the judgment says, the buffalo was not found in his house. In fact, our reporter went there. His house is so small that even a fat man cannot enter. Forget buffalo. So buffalo was not found. He was seen on a CCTV along with a group, not even part of the group. I mean, he was there, the group which was supposed to have vandalized the property or stolen the buffalo, and he also was seen. Nothing was found from him. He was supposed to be carrying a danda. That danda also police could not find. Why was he convicted? Because the court observed that it's obvious. I mean, I don't know how they arrived at that conclusion that, okay, the Muslim woman's house was vandalized, a buffalo was stolen, so a group of Hindus must have done it. Communal violence bill is, already being applied. Just imagine. So Hindus must have done it, first assumption. Secondly, why this particular guy, Dinesh Yadav, is to be convicted is because he must be a part of this group, because he shares a common objective with this group. Why? Because he is a Hindu. So this is such an absurd judgment. When it came out and we talked to a couple of lawyers, they are saying that this needs to be challenged. But what I'm trying to hint at is because this absurdity of Article 25 to 30, where so much of special status, so much of victimhood to minorities have been given, the sum result of that is that even without communal violence bill was a logical conclusion of Article 25-30, or rather an extension. Even without that bill being an act, it's already in action in our courts. So it's a crying need right now that we go ahead and definitely do something about this Article 25 to 30.
Now, being short of time, I will just say what I had in mind, which I'll not cover. I'll just cover one part after this. We wanted to speak about center-state relationship. We talked about distribution of power between states and center, the so-called concurrent, the concurrent list, the state list, and the central list, which has created a lot of problem in case of education, in case of health, in case of agriculture. And there is also issue of the directive principles. But I'll just come to one point because I want some point. Somebody wants to discuss something, should be given time if there is question asked. I will talk about Uniform Civil Code, whether it is desirable, whether it is required, and what is the kind of debate it is. So just 2 minutes each, because we may have to have another session the way things are going, but at least we'll have some touch base on most crucial issues, because many other issues can be discussed later. So on Uniform Civil Code, I would start with M.R. Venkatesh, because he is the one who started all the mischief. So M.R. Venkatesh.
Sir, it is a very simple thing. Legal practice as a chartered accountant and as an advocate has taught me one thing: never to jump on anything unless you have seen the draft. Now, all of us want to see what is the Uniform Civil Code, but I do not know what will be there in this Uniform Civil Code. The God and the devil will always lie in the details. Yes, as a broad idea, I am for the Uniform Civil Code, but I also, knowing 70 years of history of this country, it will be more uniform for Hindus and less civil for others. So that is my worry. And that is what it will be, that as Anand rightly pointed out, and incidentally, my grandfather was one of those who was drafted for drafting the Hindu law also. So finally, we people will be reforming, codifying, and doing all these things for ourselves, whereas the Uniform Civil Code will not apply to others, and they will say, they will show their middle finger and get away. But the biggest thing that could be done without these into all these semantics is, if you really want to look into it in a very serious way, ban polygamy and say that polygamy is perhaps more important because it is linked to Article 14. You say that Article 14 overrides everything else and you will ban polygamy. That will show the intention of the state to move towards a Uniform Civil Code.
Wonderful. Anand, you had a mischievous smile.
Yes, the finger has gone up almost immediately. Rather than finger on the buzzer, it's finger pointing towards the sky, which incidentally in some religion has another meaning, but I don't want to go there. But, 3 or 4 things. I think MR and Kusumlata ji has said something which is absolutely bang on. लेकिन उसमें मैं एक बात कहना चाहूँगा, Ratan, very quickly. उन्होंने रिफॉर्म की बात कही, उन्होंने स्पेसिफिकली जब वो मैरिटल रेप की बात कर रहे थे, उन्होंने अब्राहमिक रिलीजन्स की बात करी. मैं एक दो कोट्स लाना चाहता हूं टू बटरेस व्हाट शी इज सेइंग, बट आल्सो टू डिसएग्री लिटिल बिट एंड टू बी मोर प्रोवोकेटिव to rebut what she is saying. I hope she wouldn't mind. So this is a quote: I do not permit a woman to teach or to have authority over a man. She must be silent. 1 Timothy 2:12, the Holy Bible. If a man rapes a woman not engaged, he must pay 50 silver pieces to her father. Then he must marry her. Deuteronomy 22, 28, 29, the Holy Bible. The man wasn't created for the woman was created for the man. Corinthians 11, 8, 9, the Holy Bible. If a man lies with a married woman in the city, stone her to death, as she cried not. Deuteronomy 22, 24, Bible. Wives, submit yourselves unto your husbands. Husband is the head of the wife, like Christ is the head of church. Ephesians 5, 22, 24, Bible. So she's right when she talks about that the stature of woman is much lower than that of a man in Abrahamic religion. But to that, I would say, Kusumji, there has been tremendous reform in at least one of the or two of the Abrahamic religions, Judaism and Christianity. So if you look at all the states that are hitherto tied to Christianity, like Germany or America or UK, they are fast modernizing because they've had these reforms. Whereas if you look at the Islamic nations, the reform in that particular Abrahamic religion is forbidden. Allah has forbidden reform. So you cannot have reform. So that distinction is important. Now, the problem, what you say in our country is, as they say, that people who are converted, and Naipaul also said that, they try to be more Catholic than the Pope. So they are harping back to what has already been reformed in Western societies. I mean, 65% of UK is already atheist. Nobody is going to the church. So, they no longer believe in all these scriptures that are putting women at a much lower pedestal than man. They've had the reform. Problem is, in newly converted areas and in nations where they still harp back to the glory of, all these scriptures, the reforms haven't materialized. That is one thing. The other thing that, MR, when he talked about this, I'm sorry, Ratan, I have forgotten about in my haste. In the Uniform Civil Code. No, absolutely. And here, I want to say something which is very scientific, and I think it is, and I want to harp on this because I think it's very important for Hindus to think of this. As far as I'm concerned, in Hinduism, religion is an offshoot of the way of life. In Islam, way of life is an offshoot of religion. So that distinction is very important for Hindus to understand, because only in the case of Hinduism, you will have mutations. You will have the religion that has been an offshoot of a way of life. You can mutate, you can change the way of life, you can reform. So when MR says that is anxious that UCC may bring upon reforms that will only be for Hindus, I'm delighted, because only those societies that progress are the ones that take up reforms. Others don't progress. So diversity, mutations, that is what causes progress, the change. For example, right now, if Hindus had not reformed, we would still be having sati, we would still be having a lot of other practices, child marriages. So the child marriage is Indian law, for example. A Muslim need not follow, as I said, the Child Marriage Act. In fact, the High Court in Gujarat High Court commanded the Muslim to not look at the Indian Child Marriage Act and be able to marry someone who had achieved puberty at 11. So, something like that is blasphemous for a Hindu. So, which society is better? The society that reforms. So, I think in that sense, we have to look at this in a new perspective. That is, if Hindus are reforming, that is good for us.
Great. Now, okay, let me first
Anand, the issue is, 1 minute. Anand, the issue is reforms through the society is welcome. We have no issues. But reforms through the state is what we are looking at. And that is where we need to distinguish. Of course, any reforms is good reforms. I'm with it. But here we are particularly saying state cannot say I will reform only the Hindu society or I will not touch the other societies. That is where we are debating. So that's the only point I'm making.
In fact, the Hindu Code Bill was actually meant to be a uniform civil code. It was reduced to Hindu Code Bill. If you read the stories of those times.
And I still remember, sorry Ratan to interrupt, because I want to get Rahul in. You remember the Sabrimala judgment? And I was for it. And I have slightly changed my view because as I learned more about it and I talked to JSI and everything, it was not really a discrimination, but that's another matter. What Rahul had said, and I written a piece on it as well. Rahul said it the next day. Now wait what will happen. When people start about changing things in other religions that are discriminated towards women, the same people who are hailing the Sabrimala judgment are going to say, no, let's not. And the same thing happened the next day. Pratap Bhanu Mehta wrote an article, said that the state has right to, the judges did fantastic to deliver the Sabrimala judgment, but the state and the judges have no right to change the fact that women cannot be ordained as Catholic priests, that Muslim women cannot enter all mosques. वहां पे state और judges को enter नहीं करना है, लेकिन Hindus को reform करना. I just wanted to add this.
Good. Okay, Rahul, you want to add anything?
Yeah, briefly on Uniform Civil Code, I would have a differing note actually, because when we are talking about Indic values or Hindu values, as such a Uniform Civil Code won't really come in line or ethos with Indic values, where different sampradayas or different people have different kind of standards, say whom they can marry and all. That also differs from one Hindu sampradaya to other. So in that sense, strictly speaking, going back to the original topic of this debate, UCC as such is not purely Bhartiya perspective. It's more of a, the name itself says uniform. So it's like, having a, not respecting the diversity in or pluralism in some sense. However, I appreciate the fact that such a law is needed. Why it's needed? Because I think what you need is uniforms. You call it Uniform Civil Code or whatever. It should be basically a law that prevails over all other private laws in case of a dispute. So, say suppose today a Hindu woman marries a Muslim man, and then okay, fine, out of her own sweet will or the way they put it, she converts to Islam. And 5 years down the line, the marriage breaks up. Now she should have all the rights to demand a compensation or a damage or a divorce according to this Uniform Civil Code, even if she has converted to Islam. So, in case of dispute resolution, if one party chooses, this UCC should supersede the personal laws. That's how I would put it, rather than abolish all the personal laws, which could be some of the sub-Hindus laws as well, and go for one Uniform Civil Code. I would rather say have one code that is taken as a dispute resolution code.
I will just quote a nugget because we talked of Sabrimala. Senior advocate Arvind Datta wrote, "It is interesting to note that Article 26 is derived from Article 44 of Irish Constitution, which is derived from Article of 1937. This Article 44 in turn was based on Article 114 of Constitution of Poland 1921. The concept of religious denomination is a Judeo-Christian origin and used in content of defining denominations that exist in Christianity, yet we apply to India where followers of Dharma are a majority." This was the clause on which Sabrimala judgment was given. हाँ जी, कुसुमलता दीदी आप.
मैंने कुछ
आनंद फिर से उंगली.
It's a very rare occasion that I disagree.
Very short time, Anand, just 10 seconds.
Okay, in 10 seconds, I'll say I disagree with Rahul. But you would then demand an explanation.
That's good. I think then you can go out and have a fist fight. GNU के ढाबे में आप दोनों मिलके एक दूसरे का गला कूटिएगा.
नहीं, पर 30 सेकंड देके सुन लीजिए मैं why I disagree.
बोलिए प्लीज बोलिए.
हाँ, मैं ये राहुल कह रहा है कि UCC should be over and above the other things, so it would be a resolution go-to thing. I think that would be a disaster because you can't have 300 million Indians disregarding UCC and carrying on with polygamy, carrying on with co-sanguine marriages, carrying on with child marriages, that will have a horrible repercussion to the rest of the country. And I'm not just saying it that it's only, for example, when MRV talked of polygamy, do you know, MRV, that there are 4 times as many Hindus who indulge in polygamy as Muslims? When I talked about same blood marriages, like marrying cousins, now, of course, according to me, it should be banned, because it is not a matter of consenting adults. When you know that there is so much more greater risk of having an offspring which would be suffering horrible genetic disorders, at least 17 to 20% more risk, you are bringing a baby into this world knowing that risk. I think that, that is criminal. Now, that happens in many South Indian cases as well, as much as in Muslim marriages. In the third instance, when I talked about child marriages, so all those things are going to affect the rest of the country. You can't have a huge chunk of our population saying, "Ki arey tum UCC मान लो, हम तो जैसे चले आ रहे हैं हम वैसे चले आएंगे." No, I think that would be a disaster.
Okay, no, I think I'm getting from the backside that time is over. So I would request MR Venkatesh either to get the time extended from Shri, and in the meanwhile,
no, I think we are done fairly 2 hours of intense discussion. I think we should stop also. We can't be thrusting ourselves. It's a very interesting debate. This can go on for hours together with people like Anand. So we should also limit ourselves. We can have it any other day, any other time. We'll stop here, sir. But only one thing I just wanted to point out. Article 22, which talks about preventive detention, it's again a very unconstitutional. After Article 20, when you read 22, it is going from a very developed country like, say, America to Sierra Leone or some other country. Article 21, 22 would be directly in contrast with each other. But that is the level to which we have written this constitution also. But let me sum it up one way, that the basic ingredient of the Bhartiyata would have come had we written this constitution in any Indian language, be it Tamil, be it Hindi, be it Sanskrit, be it Bengali. Unfortunately, we wrote it in a British language, the English language, and probably we retained all the essence of Englishmen and forgot about our Bhartiyata. So, starting point for the next generation to be writing a new constitution would be, if at all we have to have a written constitution, probably the first step would be to write it in an Indian language rather than a foreign language. That would solve much of the problem.
I'll close this discussion with the following comment. Didi, aapko kuch kehna tha? Okay, I'll make with a closing comment, which is from Deendayal Upadhyay. He says, but one thing is clear, that many institutions will yield place to the new ones. This will adversely affect those who have vested interest in the old institutions. Some others who are by nature averse to change will also suffer by efforts of reconstruction. But diseases must be treated with medicine. Therefore, we shall have to discard the status quo mentality and usher in a new era. Indeed, our effect at reconstruction need not be clouded by prejudice against or disregard for all that is inherited from the past. On the other hand, there is no need to cling to the past institutions and traditions which have outlived their utility. This is a quote from Deendayal Upadhyay ji, whom many people from the so-called progressive society believe that the Sangha and the BJP belong to some orthodoxy of some Stone Age. So this shows that we are all open, right from Dr. Ambedkar to Deendayal Upadhyay. We are open to change. We are open to new ideas in the society. If Shri Iyer allows, we can take a few questions. Otherwise, we can say goodbye.
Thank you very much to all the panelists and Ratan Sharda ji for doing a wonderful job of hosting this session. And we just have a couple of questions. I'll have one question. Can you please bring up the question, please? Mandar Karnik wants to know, what are some of the key provisions we need to immediately abolish in the Constitution? Ratan Sharda ji, you decide who should be answering the question.
MR Venkatesh, the right person.
Okay. It is not as much as abolishing the existing provisions. It is like adding newer provisions that I will be more interested. Of course, 25 to 30 requires a relook. 22 requires a relook. There are several other interstate relationships which require a relook. But more importantly, adding more Bharatiya values into the Constitution is what I'm looking at, rather than deleting it.
All right. Next question from Alangara Abhishek. Why can't we have a decentralized and open system in our country? Is it too much to ask?
कुसुमलता दीदी, आप
answer
कुछ
is
कहना चाहेंगे इसमें? नहीं। आनंद, माइक।
you're muted.
Mike, you're muted.
Somebody else is controlling my mic.
Okay, now it's open.
Yeah.
Okay. I suspect it was MRV. He didn't want me to speak, so he was always controlling my mic. So naughty.
I want to
of him.
control you, Anand.
No, but does he mean by injecting more federalism in India? I mean, I think we have a lot of federalism, to be honest. If at all, I think one has to be very resolute in one's decision making and reduce the federalism. And we don't have time to go into it, but I think too much federalism is destroying what our society is. It is forcing people to move from one state to the other. Because of too much federalism, one state is not following what is just and moral and right, and the other state is.
Great. Yeah, Shri.
I think that's all for questions. Our apologies to those who missed out. We can go on for another 45, 50 minutes. I think we have covered most of it. And I think there's a lot to ponder for everyone. And Ratan Sharda ji, I just want to leave the panel with one thought. There was the story of a Chora king called Manu Nidhi Choran. He is supposed to have born in 235 before Common Era. And he had a dharam ganta outside his court. And anybody who felt that injustice was done to them could come and ring that bell, and the king would find out what it was and fix it. So one day, a cow came and pulled the bell. And the king didn't know what the cow was crying about. The cow had tears in her eyes. And somebody who had seen what had happened came to the king and said, sir, your son drove his chariot over her calf, and she wants justice for that. And Manu Nidhi Choran then said, the only justice for this crime is that my son be subjected to the same thing that he did to the calf. And his son was put under the chariot and he died. Now, this is Manusmriti, because that's why he was called Manu Nidhi Choran, because he followed Manusmriti. Now, I'm wondering if our framers looked at the Manusmriti while framing the Constitution. It's an open question. All of us can ponder about it. Maybe another day we can all come back and answer this. Whether this was in the... Yeah, go ahead.
I will just answer this in a second. Manu Nidhi Choran's short form stands for MNC, and we look at MNCs for answers.
Was there a king called MRV?
I don't know about that. But Manu Nidhi Choran was a great example. But unfortunately, we have reduced it to MNC. That is the problem.
Well, Ratan Sharda ji, if you want to say something in conclusion, I think I'm done. Please.
I just want to thank everybody, all the panelists, and they have done wonderful discussion, and it has been very varied, and everybody has his and her say, and I think everybody learned from each other. So it is a wonderful discussion. And Shri, thank you so much for your hosting, and thanks your entire team. And let's celebrate the next Republic Day with much more open mind and much more open ideas. Thank you so much. Jai Hind.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.